cinematic, epic, and authoritative documentary. The tone is one of a grand, fading glory, a final, impossible victory before the end. The Emperor Justinian had a dream, a restored Rome, restitutio imperii, the reunification of a fractured world. But by 551 AD, that dream was dead. Italy, the very heart of the empire, was lost. The legendary general Belisarius, after years of campaigning, had been recalled, his conquests reversed. The Gothic king, Totila, a brilliant and ruthless warlord, had retaken Rome itself. He vowed to turn the mother of all cities into pasture land. Justinian's first choice to fix this, his own cousin Germanus, assembled a grand army, only to fall ill and die just 2 days before the march. The empire was, once again, on a precipice. With his dream turning to ash, the aging emperor made the most improbable choice in Roman history. He didn't choose a battle-hardened warrior or a young aristocrat. He chose Narses, a 70-year-old court eunuch, a man who had spent his life in the palace, not the field, a man with no claim to the throne and, in the eyes of the army, no right to command it. This is the story of that man, and the seemingly impossible 3-act war he would wage for Justinian's dream. The story of the last great Roman victory in the West. Cinematic, epic, and authoritative documentary. The tone is one of a grand, fading glory, a final, impossible victory before the end. Narses may have been old, but he understood power. Justinian gave him what he never gave Belisarius, an ample war chest. With it, Narses didn't just rally an army, he built one. He gathered elite Roman soldiers from the Illyrian and Thracian fields, but this was not a purely Roman force. It was a multinational host, bound by gold. 4,000 Herulian foederati, 6,000 Lombards led by their king, and even a force of Persian cavalry sent by the Sasanian Shah himself. It was a force of 25,000 men, eager and confident. His enemy, Totila, was waiting. The Goth had blocked the main mountain passes. His Frankish allies held the north, refusing Narses' passage. The Roman army was trapped. But Narses was a strategist, not just a soldier. Drawing on centuries of Roman ingenuity, he did the unexpected. He marched his army south along the coast, shadowed by the Roman fleet. When the army reached the mouth of a wide river, the Goth scouts watched, stupefied. Narses' ships rode into the estuary, forming improvised pontoon bridges, and the army simply walked across the water, from deck to deck. Totila's general waited in the mountains for an army that never came. Narses had bypassed every trap. The road to Rome was open. The two armies met at Taginae on a field called Busta Gallorum. Totila, the warrior king, faced Narses, the ancient gelded Greek. Narses again chose his ground. He seized the high ground, a long rise protected by a hill on his left. He dismounted his Germanic federates, Lombards and Hurls, ordering them to fight on foot, a massive phalanx of 10,000 men in his center. But his masterstroke was on the wings. He placed his cavalry, but in front of them, he massed 8,000-foot archers, 4,000 on each side, in a crescent formation. As the armies watched, Totila, the new Hannibal, rode into the open valley. His eyes stared at the Roman lines. The hardened Roman veterans shuddered. And then, Totila's horse began to dance. Stupefied, the Roman army watched as the Gothic king, in full armor, put his horse through a series of elaborate jumps and pirouettes. The warlord climaxed his performance with a quick chassé into a pas de bourrée. Both armies, Goth and Roman, began to murmur, then broke into applause. It was a brilliant psychological game, an attempt to stall for 2,000 reinforcements. Narses remained unmoved. The 70-year-old eunuch a man of patience, simply held his position and waited. Totila had run out of tricks. As the sun began to recede, he ordered the charge. The ground shook as the Gothic heavy cavalry thundered forward, an unstoppable mass of flesh and steel. Totila had ordered them to use lance only, to break the Roman line in one glorious, shattering impact. They rode past the range markers the Romans had planted. Narses gave the signal. 8,000 lethally sharp bolts cut into the densely packed mass. The front lines of the Gothic cavalry were shredded into ribbons. They came on. The second volley hit. The charge was hobbled. The third, the fourth. The Romans fired 32,000 arrows in minutes. The few Goths who reached the dismounted phalanx were spent and easily repulsed. As the Goths reeled in confusion, Narses unleashed his own cavalry. The rout became a slaughter. That night, as a small party of guards tried to flee with their wounded king, Totila, conqueror of Rome, bled to death. Act 1 of Narses' war was over. With Totila dead, Narses marched south, retaking Rome for the 5th time in Justinian's reign. But the Goths were not yet finished. The remnants of their army coalesced around a new king, a general named Teias. He was Totila's last, best general, and he knew he couldn't win, but he could fight. Teias marched south to relieve the Gothic treasury at Cumae. Narses moved swiftly to intercept him. The two armies met at the Dracon River in the shadow of Mount Vesuvius. A stalemate began. The river was narrow, but its banks were too steep to ford under fire. For 2 months, the two armies stared at each other across the water, building siege towers on the bridge, fighting daily archery duels. The stalemate was broken not by land, but by sea. The Roman fleet arrived, cornered the Gothic ships, and forced their admiral to surrender. Teias and his army were now stripped of all supplies. Starvation or battle were their only options. Teias made a fateful error, retreating up the slopes of Mons Lacturius, the Milk Mountain. The Romans simply followed, stalking them, sealing the heights. The Goths were cornered. They knew they would die, so they chose how. Electing to do battle without horses, the entire Gothic army, thousands of warriors, screamed down the hill, a frenzied, desperate wave. The Romans, still marking their camp, were taken by surprise. The battle was deliriously vicious. No quarter was asked. None was given. It was not a battle of tactics. It was a mass of animals ripping and tearing each other apart. Teias, the last king, led from the front. He was quickly identified. Roman soldiers targeted him, throwing javelins. His shield filled with spears. He swapped it for another. He fought on, killing Romans left and right. His second shield filled. He swapped it again. For a moment, as he exchanged the shield, his chest was unguarded. A Roman spear struck true. Teias died almost immediately. Yet the Goths fought on. They fought as night fell. They fought knowing their king was dead, his head displayed on a Roman javelin. They fought knowing their people were at an end. Finally, at nightfall, the few survivors sued for peace. They asked only to be allowed to leave Italy and never return. Narses agreed. The Ostrogothic nation, which had ruled Italy for decades, sputtered from the pages of history. Italy was won. Justinian's dream was realized. For a single moment. Almost before the last Goth had left, a new storm appeared. The Franks and their Alemanni vassals, who had watched from the north, now saw a rich, broken peninsula defended by a war-weary army. An army of 75,000 barbarians flooded across the border. Led by two brothers, Lutharus and Buccelin, they blazed a trail of fire and death down the length of Italy. Narses, with only 18,000 men, played a patient game, consolidating his forces, letting the barbarian horde divide. And it did. Lotharis, satisfied with his loot, marched north, only to have his army destroyed by disease. This left Buccelin. He had 20,000 men and a dream of his own, to be crowned king of Italy. He marched to face Narses at the Battle of the Volturnus. Buccelin formed his men into a massive boar's head wedge designed to shatter the Roman center. Narses arranged his line in a familiar way: infantry in the center, cavalry on the wings. But just before the battle, a dispute erupted in the Roman camp. The Hurlian mercenaries, Narses's best infantry, had murdered a servant. Narses demanded the man be punished. The Hurls refused. In protest, they announced they would withdraw from the battle. 2 Hurlians defected, running to Buccelin's camp. They told him the news: the Roman center would be empty, a gaping hole. Buccelin was overjoyed. The trap was set. At the trumpet's call, the Frankish wedge stormed forward. They made straight for the gap where the Hurlians should have been. They punched through with ease, a torrent of steel, screaming in victory. They had done it. They had broken the Roman line. Buccelin could taste the crown. And then, the air changed. The forward movement stopped. The Hurlian infantry, who had never left, emerged from reserve, forming a solid wall of steel behind the Frankish vanguard. Buccelin had not broken the Roman line. Narses had opened it for him. At that exact moment, Narses gave the signal. The Roman cavalry on the wings, filled with horse archers, charged inward, attacking the backs of the Frankish column. The Frankish vanguard was now trapped, attacked from 3 sides at once. The rest of the Frankish army, seeing the panic, rushed forward, right into the trap, compacting the mass. Narses had created a reverse Cannae, a boar's head in a box. The Romans advanced in an organized line, spraying arrows and spears into the hysterical trapped enemy. The result was not a battle, it was an annihilation. The Franks were either slaughtered or drowned trying to flee across the river. The chronicler Agathias records that of Buccelin's 20,000 men, fewer than 10 survived. Roman deaths were less than 100. It was a superlative, glorious, and perfect victory. Cinematic, epic, and authoritative documentary. The tone is one of a grand fading glory, a final, impossible victory before the end. Narses, the 70-year-old court eunuch, had done the impossible. In 2 years, he had defeated 3 separate armies and 2 kings. He secured Italy for the empire. Justinian's dream was, at last, a reality. Narses was made exarch, the governor of the entire peninsula, and would rule for over a decade, rebuilding the shattered land. It was a new dawn. But it was a false one. The 18-year Gothic War had rendered Italy little more than a provincial outpost. Rome would never be Rome again. And just 3 years after Justinian himself died, a new people, the Lombards, Narses' own former mercenaries, invaded. This time, there would be no one to stop them. Narses' brilliant campaign was not the restoration of the Roman Empire. It was simply its last great victory. A final glorious flash of imperial light before the darkness closed in for good.